Hi, Sai here from Music Radar, and we're at the Yamaha room. Not so much a booth, they've got a massive room here, loads of stuff going on. This, if you didn't realise, is Richard Devine. Hello, Richard. Just been performing here now on your lovely rig that you've brought all the way from where now? You've just been playing in Mexico City.
Yes,
right?
so I was just playing at Control Fest in Mexico City, then had a brief stopover in Atlanta, Georgia, and then flew directly from there to Berlin. So it's been quite a trip. Yeah.
An important laundry break, isn't it? Get the clothes on.
Needed.
Yeah. So
Totally.
let's have a talk about your rig you've got going here.
Okay.
It's quite vast, so I think we'll start from the left and work our way around. And
Yeah.
so what's happening?
So typically, my setup usually doesn't involve a keyboard with a montage. It's usually just what you see on this table when I play festival gigs and shows. You see, I use, so we can just start from left to right.
Yeah.
The Nord Drum 2 from Clavia. I've been using this for about 2 years. I really like it because of the voicing structure. Got additive, subtractive synthesis, FM synthesis, multiple different timbres of noise. It's basically synthetic drums. The timbres of this match really well with the Eurorack format oscillators and stuff. And, before, the reason why I was using it, I was actually taking up a lot of my rig with percussion modules, like kick drums and snares and hi-hats and VCAs, and trying to build 8 voices. So it was like wasting one case for just percussion. So it really wasn't making sense for me to do that. So what I decided to do was bring a dedicated rig that could do a lot of the drums. I still use other drum percussion modules in conjunction with this, but this is a good chunk of what's happening. But it's also being triggered via gates, via the circadian rhythm here. And I can go through this. This is basically my sequencing rig. And this is going to change up a bit. I'm actually in the process of moving over to the Eloquencer, by Winter Modular, which is what I've been using at home in my studio. I'm actually building a new live set with that sequencer, so I have all my old sequences and the circadian rhythm. But this has been my typical rig for about the past 2.5, 3 years. So what we're seeing here is you see the 8-gate outputs. They go into the Skipman probability skipper modules. And what's interesting about this is it takes the incoming gate signals at the top here, and you can basically twist in the knob percentage values of how much of the incoming gates you want to have come through. So if I turn them all the way counterclockwise to the left, no gates will pass through at all. If I start moving the knobs to the right, it allows some of the gates to pass through. Turning the knobs completely to the right will allow the gate to pass 100%. So what's neat about that is I can play different combinations of, you make polyrhythms on the fly, plus with the mutes, you can mute on and off different things. So it's kind of like generating new rhythms on the fly based on the patterns that are already programmed into what I have going on with the circadian rhythm. So I think that was pretty fun. From there, I run stuff, basically I have a rotating clock divider here, which allows me to rotate and divide the clock signal into various randomizers. Here I have the Qubit NanoRan. One of my favorites by Ladek is the R110, which is a random gate and trigger module, which is also being clocked by the circadian rhythm. And basically here at the end is just a couple mixers. I'm using the Pico DSP module for kick drum processing. This is the WMD. MSCL is a little mini stereo compressor, really great to kind of give my drums a little extra punch on the PA rig. Pretty simple setup, a couple of mults here that I usually, during the show, will mult out signals from either this clock divider or from the random gate, and then periodically input through the system at will. Then I've got another mixer here, and then the Phonogene, which has got a custom firmware that Tom Erb kind of tweaked for me for my live show.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Tom's a good friend. And so I love the Phonogene for basically glitching the drum. So what it does is it's processing the Nord, and sort of in these short spurts I use broken echo mode, and I switch back and forth to do kind of like samples 2 seconds at a time, and it kind of regurgitates and plays back a chunk and mangles it. Just sort of an added texture to the signal, to the drum signal chain. And then from there I multi that out for this setup I'm using warps and the Clouds U-Burst
Yeah.
over here, which is a mini version of the Mutable Instruments Clouds to do extra processing. So I'm multing that signal out. What I like to do is run some of the percussion layers through several different effects modules. So I get these, I have like a meshy layer, I have a detailed crispy layer, and maybe one layer that's kind of got delays and stuff going on that I can kind of mix in between.
Okay,
just to get more animation. I mean, it just, in my personal opinion, it sounds more interesting to my ears. It might be annoying to other people, but so
it's definitely not, by the way.
Yeah, but this is basically that. Yeah. So from there, so what I've been doing here is this is the master clock, right? For this particular show. I just got the Pauline Sequencer, so that's what this is. So the Pauline Sequencer is actually clocking into this module, the Poly N module, Eurorack module. So as you can see, as I hit play, it corresponds to 8 different gate outputs that I'm using here. You actually can do lots of stuff with the Poly N. You've got pitch outputs, velocity, modulation. You can connect via USB to the computer if you want. Multiple different things that you could do. You have lots of options. For this setup, I primarily am using gates and triggering other sequencers. For instance, on here, number 7, this one's going to a mult, which is clocking into my Modcan touch sequencer. That is is clocking my circadian rhythms.
Okay.
So this is the clock, as you can see, being all controlled. And what's really neat about this is I'm able to run things in double time or half time very quickly. So I can just turn off, go half time. Just by step of a button, or set a preset where I can run at different divisions and multiplications on the fly by pushing a button. So it's really neat to have one sequencer play another sequencer. It really kind of comes up with more variations and rhythms. I'm just trying to come up with ways to. It's kind of a, I don't know. I'd say it's more like a free jazz approach.
I guess you're seeing it.
But basically, then from there, I'm triggering a qubit. Not the qubit, it's 2 HPs, kick drum and hi-hat over here. The WMD Shimra, which is another voice, which is on channel 4. Channel 2 is another snare, the new Fracture Eurorack module, which is a granular sampling, snare drum, clap emulation, percussion. Great module. And then the melodies, it's interesting. The melody structuring is all done with the Modcan touch sequencer over here. So it's 4-part melodies. I have 3 micro braids here, each with their own filter here. This is the MMF filters. I really like these. Are small, and the sound of them complements really well with the Mutable Instruments braids. So I kind of use them, as you can see here on the right hand side. All 3 correspond to the first 3 channels here, and then on the 4th channel I'm using the Shapeshifter by IntelliGel, which is doing a lot of like bass textures and sort of like wave folding type sounds. Really nice when you layer all 4 together. So I can do these sort of 3 to 4 part harmonies in a way. And then the rest of the stuff that's in here is a couple of samplers. I'm using the STS sampler to do like weird sound effects and textural kind of things. Trying to see what else is in here. I'm using some of the old ADAC Wave Player 101 for doing more like kind of glitchy percussion stuff that's layered on top. And then if we actually move to this side, got the old IntelliGel mixer, the old Dixie version 1 by IntelliGel, and the Modcan Quad LFO, which is one of my favorite LFOs for doing multiple different things. You can have multiple different wave shapes. You have 4 channels. You can, run in multiple different modes. Excellent module. And then I'm using a couple of newer things here that I've been trying out. The Transistant by Future Retro. This is a really cool percussion-based module that you get a lot of versatility out of it with the most minimal amount of CV and gate activity. I mean, you could just trigger a gate and get tons of things happening. There's built-in LFOs and stuff that can do internal modulation within itself. So it's a great module to have live, to add a lot of flexibility in a smaller portable rig. So I highly recommend. It's really cheap. It's like $200 US dollars, I think. And then I've been recently using the graphic VCO quite a bit. I've really been digging, getting kind of back into wavetable synthesis, and this is such a great module for drawing in your own wavetables, storing, recalling them. So I've been using it for cool bass lines and drones and sort of things like that, and really interesting. And then from there, I'm using there's the 4MS QCD, quad clock distributor, which is doing a couple other things here, clocking out various multiplications, divisions to the Mysteron, and to the D0 by Mungo, which is a dual delay line module, which does very crazy delays. Another STS here for kind of drones and textures, and then one of my favorites most recently is the ER301. It's pretty much a computation sound engine. It's hard to explain. You can do all sorts of things, build your own units. It's basically 4 channels. You can have 4 independent sample channels. You have 12 inputs that could be either CV or gate. They're freely assignable per patch, however you want to use them. It can do very, very complex things. Actually, you could do a whole show
just with that one.
Just with this module. It's so deep and complex. And it's just another great module to have in the arsenal. When I work on my show, my goal's been typically I try to play around 9 to 10 songs in 1 hour from my system. So I try to have as much variety and sound changes, and I don't want to just come and play a 30 or 40 minute set and kind of do the same thing.
You want the emotional journey to be there and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly. Well, I'm just trying. I'm just trying to challenge myself more to do. Just to do more. I feel like I could find ways to do it, and I like that, putting that challenge on myself, coming up with new creative ways to come up with different changes and transitions and new sounds. With a limited system. I know when I say that, people look at my studio and see that I have all this stuff. But I really, really like working with smaller setups, because you find all these cool things accidentally, and you have a problem. You think about a problem that you have, and you're like, how do I do that with what I have? And then you figure out how to get around that, and you discover things that way. So it's
keeping it in a nice sort of enclosed thing.
Closed environment, really concise, and then just trying to really, really figure out how to use these things in a creative way to do what you want, to come up with a creative result that whatever you're trying to accomplish, So I feel that's a much better exercise than trying to use my giant rigs at my studio.
And of course, carrying those around is going to be a nightmare. Of course. And you're talking about, like, you brought the sec in here. For today, you've also incorporated the montage.
So here, the whole reason that we're here at the Yamaha booth is that. I was one of the original programmers that worked on the montage. I want to say it was about 1.5 years ago. We worked on this for it was a good 6-7 months. Heavy, intense programming. I was on
you know it quite intimately.
I do it pretty intimately. So I primarily use the FMX engine. I'm a big fan of the old DX. DX7s. TXA802, TXA1Zs. I still have them. My DX100, DX200. I have a lot of the old early 80s RY30 digital FM based synths. So I've always been a big fan of that stuff. And the FS1R and all the. When I heard that they were going to be coming out with this sort of monster, super, spaceship FMX engine, I was like, all right, I really need to check this out. So they got in contact with me. And then when I looked at the specs, I knew right away that it was going to be pretty interesting. 8 operators and then 8 voices you can spread across. You can do really complex things. I can make full drum kits, like a kick drum, snare, hi-hat, and then all kinds of other stuff. And with the super knob, you could do all kinds of stuff. You could assign it to anything, so you could do sort of liquid automation to every single parameter in the system for every voice, and then you have the motion sequences, and then that's when things started to get really out of hand. And that's, for me, what made the thing so cool. Sure, you can play a cool grand piano sound on it, but that's not what I use it for. No, sure. I was making really just really strange, evolving textural FM sounds and a lot of cool percussion stuff, and I'm still discovering new things with it. It's an extremely powerful synthesizer in that aspect. And I think it's misleading for a lot of people that when they see it, it's like, oh, it's just another motif. It looks like another motif. And there is sample-based stuff in it, but
it's a lot more.
There's a lot more in there. And actually, another thing that was really interesting to me was the built-in effects are really awesome. There's some really strange not your typical type of effects in there.
Okay, yeah.
That really are really interesting. And there's also an envelope follower that you can do stuff with. You can run stuff in and have that control other things. There's a very extensive modulation matrix. I mean, it's just a very it's almost like a modular in a way.
Yeah,
you can assign
yeah.
so many things. There's endless lanes of automation you can assign to anything you want in the system, which makes it very interesting for like sound exploration and experimentation of whether you want to play with a mixture of samples and FM synthesis, or just play around all around with FM synthesis on its own and just kind of seeing what happens.
Yeah.
So, for today's setup, the Pauline Sequencer was sequencing via MIDI on its own channel out in time with the modular. It was the most elegant solution that I could come up with in a short amount of time to get this to integrate together. So, but what's nice about the Pauline Sequencer is you can play chords. It'll play chord structures.
Yeah.
Direct via MIDI, and it's got different quantized modes in it, so I can keep things in a specific scale, which is pretty handy to have in a pinch.
I imagine it is. Talking about indispensable bits of gear, I'm going to press you for.
Sure.
You were talking about the circadian rhythms. You're replacing with the Eloquencer, and you're sort of. It's always evolving your rig. Like you say, you've got a ton of stuff. Mm-hmm. Is there one thing that you just couldn't do without live? Not at home, but live. What would be the one module that would be?
I don't know. I think the ER301.
Yeah?
Yeah, that one's been I've been leaning really heavy on that lately. Mm-hmm. I've been getting really deep into programming that and making a lot of my own custom units that do. You can really, really customize how you deal with CV signals and gate signals, and then through what they call a unit, you build a patch that are based on these DSP modules, and they can all have interjection points where the CV can come in, and you decide how that. It's kind of like a mini reactor.
Wow.
Reactor or Max MSP environment that's inside that. So you can really you can make stuff that's self-generative. It can generate. It's got oscillators and stuff, and they're built in. You can do stuff that. Without any CV at all, you can do it all. It's got built-in LFOs and stuff. It's just so powerful that, I mean.
Yeah, you can.
For me lately,
you could be in that forever, almost. Yeah.
Like I said, I could do my whole show just on that module. If I had to do it, I could totally do it on that. It's just such a great. It's so powerful. Although there's a bit of a learning curve to it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of menu diving, which. A lot of people that are into this format are not usually big fans of, but if you put the time into it, you can get some really, really neat things. I was one of the first adopters of it, so me coming from more of a computer programming background, I was naturally inclined to want to jump on board as quickly as possible.
Yeah, bread and butter for you. Maybe not for everyone, but I see what you're saying.
I mean, and most people look at my setup, it's primarily digital based. There's a couple analog things in here, but I like to take advantage of the digital-based oscillators and sequencers and samplers. Especially in a live setting, it's great to have so many options and being able to recall things when you want to switch to a different song and have a bunch of different sounds load up right away, which is usually difficult to do.
In the analog.
In the analog realm, if you're using more analog-based oscillators and stuff, and that's not to say that's a bad thing. I love doing that in my studio. I have full all analog-based rigs that you just have to think about things a little using
different approach for it.
Different approach, exactly.
So talking about Superbooth as a whole, you've only been here one day. So
one day,
but you have had a chance to have a look round.
Yes.
Has there anything that's kind of piqued your interest that you're thinking, you know what, I might be buying that when I get home?
I really like the Pauline Medusa.
Yeah.
That Dreadbox, they're kind of collaborative.
Yeah.
That was a really unique idea. I love all their stuff. They have such a unique approach to sequencing and interface design. I really feel that it's something I've more recently discovered and been kind of getting into their stuff. I'm really, really big fan of that. I want to say it's Chaos Devices. Is that right? From Poland? Of the X?
Yeah, I assumed that, yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
We're probably wrong. Sorry.
If I'm screwing that up. But anyways, their new harmonic oscillator, the 1975 additive oscillator called Odessa, I think. I heard it yesterday. Blew my mind away. That was absolutely gorgeous. I'm a really big fan of additive synthesis. I use the Kima system. I use a lot of the additive features in that as well. Big fan of Metasynth and anything that kind of has that sound. I'm kind of I'm just a sucker for it. I love that kind of stuff. So when I
yeah.
saw that they had made an oscillator, basically it's a clustering oscillator, so you could do things that are in tune, or the signs can be declustered. You could take the even and odd harmonics and start changing the density. And I spent about 30 minutes yesterday with it, just on the headphones, just being like,
this is good.
Right. I think this is absolutely gorgeous. That was really nice. I'm trying to think, what else did I see yesterday? Really liked Scott Yeager's new Piston Honda Mark III.
Cool.
I like the new interface of that. Really, really unique. And what else did I? There were so many things that.
There was so much stuff here.
Yeah, my brain.
It's always too much.
It's too much. Yeah, I mean.
You get lost as well, which we do.
And I still haven't even seen it all. I didn't even make it to the other hall.
Oh, really?
To see.
Well, you should.
Everything that was over there,
Talking of what you're going to be doing next, what's the sort of the plans after the show? Are you going back home?
Going back home to do some
shows?
work. I have a new album coming out.
Cool.
It's coming out in October on Planet Mu Time Sig Records.
Sweet.
And it's a pretty crazy record. I'm
look
really
forward to
excited
that,
to release it. It's going to be 3-part vinyl, and it's pretty wild. It was a very challenging record to create because it was primarily done on modulars, multiple systems that I linked together using the same clock, but the goal for me was to go through distinctive movements in one track, over the span of 8 minutes, go through like 5 or 6 completely different movements, different sounds, different percussion, different effects that evolve over the course of time. So it was challenging to mix it, challenging to perform it. So there was multiple, there were times where I would go through a performance like 40 times before I got the take that I wanted. Because I wasn't using a computer, so it was all done by hand. So if I screwed up a part, I'd be like, all right, I got to start all over. So it was a bit nerve-wracking at times.
But presumably now you're a pro at it. Will you be going to perform the album post-release? Is that on the cards at all?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be one of those things I'd be able to perform, because they were kind of like, when you generally do this stuff, it was kind of like, once it's recorded, that's it, you know? Which I kind of love. I love that. You kind of just have to let go and be like, this is the one performance, and
I've released into the world. That's it,
and you move on, you know? And actually, I've been more productive with this stuff than I had been with a computer, because with a computer, I have a bad tendency to go back and keep reworking on things, you know what I mean? I'm sure everyone maybe knows what I'm talking about. Where I'm like, let me just keep working on this part. It could be better, and then I spend months, then months turn into a year, and the track, I forget about it, and then I'm like, I'm looking on my hard drive, and I'm like, I forgot about this track, and I never even finished it, because it's like the never-ending project. With this stuff, it's different. I've been a lot more productive. I recorded maybe 250 songs last year. Like, I already have enough material for another album to come out next year, but I don't know if I'm going to release it quite as soon. I might be changing some things around, but my goal was to basically record a song every night on the modular, and that's what I've been doing. So I've been getting in these exercises where I've been trying to get better, faster, more proficient at patching. After a full day of doing sound design work, I just go in and spend a couple hours, and then my goal is always to record a track every night and see what happens. Sometimes they're really terrible. Sometimes it's just garbage. Sometimes something really cool happens, and you just don't know what it'll be. You know what I mean? Sometimes I have something in my head that I want to try, and it comes out perfect. Sometimes it turns into something completely that I never imagined would have happened, and that's really the beauty of this
voyage
stuff.
Discovery.
There's so many variations and different rabbit holes you could go down. So it's magical sometimes what happens. So it's been really, as a tool for me musically and creatively, it's been indispensable. I mean, it's really increased my productivity, and like my creativity's just been
brilliant.
It's for people that want to get into it, it's addicting. I'll warn the people that it can be very addicting. I don't call it Eurorack for nothing.
That's it.
But I mean, I think the main attraction to it is just how much fun it is, because it's so interactive and physical, and you're basically just using your ears and your hands. You're not looking at a screen. I tend to be one of those people, if I'm looking at a timeline or a screen working on the computer, sometimes I'll make decisions based on what I'm seeing. I'm like, I should do something right here at 30 seconds, and then you're not really thinking about what's the most important thing, musically, what you should be doing. So with this stuff, you're using your ears completely the whole time, and that's what's steering the direction of what you should be doing. So I feel that the result's been better. personally, but you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if my fans would agree with that, but you know, that's just.
But generally, the take home is get into modular. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah,
I mean, if
yeah.
you can afford it, I know it's expensive, but you know,
There are the cheaper things.
there's
out
cheaper
there.
things. Yeah. But you don't really need a big system. Like I wrote most of my album on this setup.
Yeah.
It wasn't my big rigs in my studio.
Yeah.
People think that I use all this big stuff, and actually I used very small percentage of things. I'm much better when I limit myself to just using
Yeah, of course.
a smaller set of
Yeah,
options. I call it option anxiety. I've mentioned it before in interviews when I open up my my DAW or
Yeah.
whatever, my sequencer, and I go see like 4,000
Too
plugins.
much. There's too much stuff.
I can't make a decision
No,
on what I want to use.
Can't
so
get started.
yeah, it's not. I don't think it's good to have too many options. I feel it's better to
Limit yourself.
concentrate on making the content, like making the piece. Like that should be the most important thing.
Yeah.
It should be the inspiration to do something. It shouldn't be about it. Really, at the end of the day, it shouldn't be about the tools. You
No.
know, like I mean, you need the tools, but I think it's more important what you do with them. Like inspire people, like inspire something interesting to happen musically, or a sound effect or sound, or an emotion with sound. I think that's what's the most. I tell people all the time that the best piece of equipment for me isn't a new piece of gear. It's getting a really awesome piece of music that someone sends me.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Right.
I tell people that's the best musical inspiration from some other artist that gives me an idea. There's nothing greater than that.
Yeah, cool.
I think that's
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, Richard, thank you so much for showing us your rig and having a
Absolutely.
chat with us now.
Yeah, no problem.
Be sure to like, subscribe, comment and share wherever you're seeing this video right now, and head on over to musicradar.com for all the latest news, reviews and tutorials. And for us, that'll be it. Thank you. Bye.